Howdy, howdy, howdy. John Robinson here with John Buys Houses. It is Tuesday afternoon. We're coming in a couple minutes late, but it is time for Tuesday Talks. We do this live every single Tuesday. Actually, last Tuesday I missed because my voice was completely shot. Like I had zero voice. I could not talk at all. Got this crazy head cold thing that's been going around and couldn't even talk. So there was no Tuesday Talks. You didn't miss anything last week, but we're here live today. And as we like to do at the beginning of each show, I'd love to have you guys come on and say, Kevin says, "Here's Johnny." Okay, so you guys get the reference there. If you have any understanding of old time, what was that? What was that show? What was the guy's name? Somebody, come on! I'm drawing a complete blank. Johnny Carson. There we go, Johnny Carson. So definitely not claiming to have that kind of talent on this show. But what we do talk about is talk about real estate. We talk about markets. We talk about what's going on in the world of real estate investing as a business. Sometimes, yeah, Johnny Carson. So exactly. Thanks, Ted. Good to see you here, Ted. Good to see Andy, local home buyer. Kevin Smith over in Eastern Idaho. We got Ted and Andy over. Andy's probably in Vancouver somewhere today or out working on the coast in Oregon or Washington. And then we got Ted there in Beaverton, Tigard area. But wherever you guys are watching from, just drop in a little note. Just say, hey, here's where I'm watching from today. I'd love to see what you guys are doing. Let's see, Andy's doing a walkthrough right now. Andy, you doing a walkthrough on a flip or on a project for one of your clients? Tell us a little bit more about where you're from, what you're working on today, and what I really would like to hear today is what are you guys up against in the real estate investing business? I'll tell you a couple of things that I've heard this week, just by point of reference. Obviously, it's no surprise, no new news that that the U.S. is involved actively in a campaign over in the Middle East again. I guess I shouldn't say again. It seems like we've been there for just about as long as I've been an adult. So whether you think that should be happening or not, it's definitely a debate for a different show on a different day. But what it does do, and I know that this is something that some of you have actually experienced already, is it does actually affect the market a little bit sometimes. So I've heard of a couple people that have had their buyers that have backed out of purchase because of concern about what's going to happen with the economy and the market. So I'm curious if you guys had anything like that happen. I want to know if you guys have run into anything like that. And then I want to know, like, what is it that you're up against? I want to see what some of the things you're struggling with in the comments. So Ted says finding leads. Okay, Ted, it's so funny, Ted, that you and I we should have already talked about this, but we have once in the past. We sat down with you and your bride, and here in Boise, as you guys are getting here, but there is a very, very specific niche lead source that I utilize these days, and I have for the last 5 years. That, Ted, it goes so close. It runs right along parallel to what you're already doing or what you're trying to do. So we should talk sometime. Andy says he's doing a PDX Renovations house up for sale as a flip. So PDX Renovations, I'm just going to be very careful about what I say because this is public and it's live, and I would just be very, very careful, Andy. Be very careful. Peggy says that she's concerned about fuel prices, gas. I'm sure that is going to be affected in some way, shape, or form. Looks like the Iranians they tried to have the Strait of Hormuz closed down, but I think we sunk all their ships. So anyway, that's kind of a different topic. Like I said, different time. So yes, Andy, you said they're the sellers as wholesale and sub too. Yes, I get that, and yeah, just be careful. Just be careful, my friend. Be careful when you're dealing with certain companies in Portland. I'm going to leave it at that. So if you're talking about finding leads, we talked about this last time. It wasn't really what we were trying to set out to do, but it is something that we did talk about, and it's the idea of What are the 4 pillars? There's 4 main elements that makes a good motivated seller lead. I want to see if you guys did your homework, if you remember anything. What are the 4 primary elements, the 4 primary pillars of what constitutes a good seller lead? So, and by the way, we have things coming in here on the comments. Andy says, I know, won't mention other things. Peggy just came right out and said it. PDX renovations have a horrible reputation of cheating people. Yes, they do. And I would just be really careful. And they have a lot of money they spend on marketing. They're at the top of the fold, and that's how they get leads, because that's where people go. You guys understand that just because someone's at the top of the page does not mean that they're the best in the business. If they're in the top of the page, meaning what we talk about when we say top of the page is that's a reference that was used back in the old days of the newspaper era, right? So the top of the fold would be, the paper is folded in half, and that top page, front page, it's not just the front page, but it's the top of the fold front page. And so the top of the fold, top of the page is a reference that when you go to your phone and you Google something like, I'm just going to show it right here. If I Google sell my house fast, okay, now the thing already knows that where I'm at, right? Because it knows I'm in the Boise area. It's using my location. So you can see here, the top of the fold, the first results I get, my camera's all blurry, but top of the fold is open door. And then I get a offer, sellmyhousefastid.com. And so what these are, but the top of the fold, that very first page is almost completely taken up by offer or open door. Okay. So what that means is they have paid enough money to show up there, and they run their ads correctly, and they do all their targeting and all their keywords and all that stuff that AI now looks for, and all kinds of different things, right? And they make sure that their ad pops up at the top of the fold, top of the page. Now, just because someone's at the top doesn't mean that they're the best in the area. It doesn't mean that they're the best in the business. In fact, what it means is they have a huge marketing budget, and they have the ability to make sure that their ad pops up on the top of that page. That's all that means. And so you definitely have some research to do, which most people don't, when it comes to dealing with selling a house quickly, because there's a lot of people that just spend a ton of money in marketing, and they put all their marketing efforts into that, and it works very, very well. Now you have to spend a lot of money to be in that position. On a monthly basis, you're going to be looking to spend anywhere from probably $5,000 to $10,000 a month easily, just in making sure that you stay in that top of the page position. So anyway, but that doesn't mean they're always the best. And in the case of Portland, it definitely means they're not always the best. In fact, they are, quite frankly, can be some of the worst. And like I said, just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to leave Peggy's comment up there for a minute. Okay, Ted says, I recall our conversation about the source and are definitely interested in learning. Good. Well, Ted, we should follow up again, because I'm working on putting some stuff together. In fact, I have something I was going to maybe try to show you guys today. I will see if I can get it pulled up while we're talking. Monica's on here today. Monica, what are you working on today? Probably something to do with your deck or your house, if I had to take a guess. That's the gift that keeps on giving out there, Monica, is your property. It's always giving you something to stay busy with it, right? Looking something real quickly. I wanted to find out from you guys, like I said, have you heard anything about this whole idea of the bombings in Iran? Is it causing any disruption to your real estate business? Because I've heard this from a couple of people, but they were more of actual like retail agent type of folks. It didn't have anything to do with like off market type of deals. So it's kind of interesting to think that people would pull out of a real estate deal as they're moving in because of news in the Middle East. But these things do end up having an effect. We know that from time to time. So kind of get it, also kind of don't, but kind of curious what you guys' thoughts are. While I'm here on this topic real quick, I do want to show you guys something real quickly. Hey, look at this. Andy came through. I'll come back to what I was going to show you. Andy came through 4 pillars. Here's what makes a good motivated seller. We've got time. They got a definite time frame, time constraints. They've got the property, its condition itself. You want to find out about that. You kind of want to know what their main pain is. Like, is this a house that was inherited? Is this a divorce issue? Is this a behind on payments? Is this we got a new job and we got to be there in 30 days? What's going on? And then what kind of price point do they have in mind? So those 4 pillars are those you want to have at least 2, preferably 3, ideally 4. But at least 2 of those 4 things you need to have, you need to know like really, really clearly, like, okay, the property is not in bad shape, for instance. By the way, people think that a property has to be in bad shape for it to be a good deal for an investor. No, it doesn't. It can be in great shape, but there has to be some other things like, okay, but we need to sell, and we need to sell in a hurry. And we know that because we're selling in a hurry, we're not going to get top dollar. Okay, now those 3 elements make it possible for us to be able to say, okay, we can pay a little bit more as the buyer because we're not going to have to go do a renovation on the house, but we're not going to pay full price. Does that make sense? So those 4 things are super, super important. 2 out of those 4, if not 3, preferably 4 out of 4. 4 out of 4 is what makes, in my opinion, just a slam dunk, awesome deal. So I think if you get they're in a hurry, the property is in bad shape, they have some kind of a pain point that is causing them to even talk to you in the first place. Which, by the way, I'm not the one that caused the pain, right? Don't think that because they're in pain that means I'm somehow not taking advantage of that. What that means is because they're in pain, because they have a pain point, because they have some kind of an issue going on, a crisis, some kind of a thing that has caused them to say, hey, I got to skip the realtor. I've got to skip the renovations. I've got to skip all that stuff. I need to get going on getting this thing sold. So, and then of course they understand the price is not going to be full retail price. You have those 4 combos, you're going to have a deal. That's what makes a good deal. Okay. And so, like I said last time, I'm not going to get into all this this time, but like I said last time is I have a lead source that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years now. It basically checks all of those boxes. There's definitely an urgency. There's definitely almost always the house is not in market ready condition. They have a pain point. They need money and they need it now to pay for something. And they understand that because we're selling in a hurry, because the property is not in great shape, we're not expecting full price. They're not going to argue with you on full price, or maybe even they're not even going to argue on like, well, I need to get enough money to pay off the loan and still have X amount left over. Most of these properties have a pretty high amount of equity, so they're still going to get a good chunk of money whenever we buy the property. So I like what Andy said. Andy said we are the aspirin for their house. That's right. My John Buys Houses is unique solutions for unique situations. John Buys Houses, unique solutions for unique situations. I say unique because what we're providing is really a service. It's not just we're going to buy the house, we're providing a service. We're solving problems. We're getting their problems solved, and that's what allows us to get into these deals and make money on them when we're all said and done. So I wanted to show you guys this real quickly. If I can pull it up here, I'm going to have to find a way to pull it up. Let me get it off the computer here. And what I wanted to talk about is if you are in the local area, like if you're in the Treasure Valley area, I'd really like to see you guys come out for the Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors Group meetup happening this Thursday. So today's Tuesday, we got tomorrow, Wednesday, the next night is Thursday, and we're doing the Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors Group meetup. That's every first Thursday here in the Valley. And then if you're over in the Portland area, then I'd like you guys to come out for the obviously for the PDX REI Group meetup. Those are the 2 cities that we actually have monthly meetups in right now. And we really, really love doing these meetups and having as many people as possible come out. If you have not already done it, I'm going to just type it right here in the chat. If you have not already done it, I need you to go to these 2 links that I'm going to show you below. Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat, and if somebody else already has it, then and you guys beat me to it, then that's fine. But I'm going to put this here as number 1 in the Treasure Valley area. Putting it in here, I'm typing as I'm talking. So hopefully check we didn't do any major Any major disaster there on the spelling? Nope, we're good to go. And then on the Portland side, we're going with the PDX REI group meetup. So go over to those links. You can check it out in the chat. Go over to those links and make sure you RSVP for the meetups. So the one here in Boise is happening on the first Thursday of every month. Obviously, Portland, it's every third Thursday of each month. So check that out. Now, I want to see if I can get you guys this thing that I had pulled up here. Where is it? I want to talk about these deals. If you guys don't have anything specifically that you wanted to talk about today, I wanted to pull up a couple of deals that I'm working on right now, and I'm not sure why it's not allowing me. Why isn't it doing that? I hate it whenever I have something ready to go and then it doesn't pull up. You know, you can see the image there, but it's kind of faded. It's not letting me actually access it. I'm not sure why that is. What I could probably do is just pull it up here and then share my screen. I know we can do that. So, okay, where are we at here? Let's put these into a different group. Let's go with this one. Okay, I'm going to talk about this. If I can open it up, do that one. And then, by the way, I'm looking at the comments. You guys have any comments? Who's coming to these meetups? If you're in the area and you know for sure you're coming out to these meetups, TV REI group meetup, PDX REI group meetup, comment me in the chat. I want to see who's coming. I want to see how many of you guys are actually coming out to these events, because again, I'm always like, man, should we keep doing this? Because sometimes I wonder, are you guys getting value out of this? Is this something that you're wanting to keep doing? Should I keep doing this? Because it's a lot of work. It's honestly a lot of work. And I got to, have people like Peggy helping me out, getting stuff ready, picking food up, all those kind of things. So you guys let me know, though, if you're coming out, if you get value out of these meetups, and if you are coming out to them this month, one on first Thursday and the other one on the third Thursday. I'm trying to pull this up, and for some reason, it just doesn't seem to be working today. So kind of disappointed about that. The reason could be that my computer is extremely slow, because I just have like a million tabs open and I just work like that, and I don't know much about computers. So what I was going to show you guys is I've got two deals right now that I kind of threw out there to the two different groups, the Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors Group and the PDX Portland Real Estate Investors Group, that there might be a possibility to co-own these properties. And these are kind of like a co-living / Airbnb, or rather I should say maybe kind of a short-term / co-living hybrid. What I mean by that is both of these properties would ideally, I think, based on the way the numbers work around this time, is I think that these properties are both make really, really good short-term rentals. I know. A lot of people are not fans of short-term rental, but let me tell you what happened here in Idaho just this last month. So in February, the Idaho legislature actually passed a bill. They approved it that says that the state and the cities in Idaho cannot put extra restrictive measures on short-term rentals. Now that was a huge win for homeowners, really. But you understand that there's been a lot of pushback against short-term rentals from which industry? Take a guess at which industry. Who would be pushing back against short-term rental properties? I want to see if anybody knows. I want to see if you can put it in the chat. Peggy says, we're going to get super big attendance this month in Portland. Absolutely right. Ted says he's going to be there. Okay, perfect. Andy gives us a thumbs up. I'm assuming that means he's going to be there. Okay, so Andy says hotels. Absolutely. The hospitality industry has been just pushing against the short-term rental. Why? Because it's a direct competitor, right? This is a short-term rental is a direct competitor with a hotel room. In fact, if you think about it, one short-term rental could potentially take away like 2 to 3 hotel rooms. Because why do people get short-term rentals? Because they want to maybe have more room for everybody, for the whole family. And so instead of having to rent 3 bedrooms in a hotel room or 3 hotel rooms, we get a 3-bedroom house. And it's usually for about the same price or very comparable to what one hotel room would cost per night. So the hospitality industry, hotels in particular, have been pushing against the short-term rental industry pretty much since its inception. Okay. Now, it's been 10 years since this really started happening, longer really, but there's enough momentum that's been caught up, and enough money that's gone against these short-term rentals that a lot of cities have actually called down. They've said, "Hey, we're not doing this anymore." They've heightened. They've put caps on how many people can do it. They've restricted. I know one property that I bought, an investment property with another investor out in the Columbia Gorge. We didn't find out until afterwards that that little city that we were in, Cascade Locks, had a restriction to where you couldn't have one short-term rental if there was another one within 300 feet already that was registered. And so the property that we specifically bought, we bought two properties actually that we specifically bought to do short-term rental, and we had to actually switch gears midstream once we found that out. And that wasn't something that was just like commonly known. That was something that, and when you went to go apply for the thing, it's like, oh yeah, well, we need you to show proof of how far, what's the nearest short-term rental. I was like, what do we need that for? I said, well, we have this stipulation. So the point is, a lot of the short-term rentals market has been hurt because of the massive millions of dollars that Hyatt and Hilton and all these different hospitality industries have the ability to put money into legislation and really actually lobby with cities and states and counties to get short-term rentals restrictions on the books. Okay. And so by doing that restrictive policy, it's obviously kept certain people from doing it, short-term rentals, obviously, and then it's also made it harder, or maybe it's not as profitable. There's been a lot of restrictions put on short-term rentals across the board, and so what was really interesting is here in Idaho, legislation was passed for an entire month. I mean, entire month for the entire state. It took several months to get this to the place where it was actually, but it looks like it's going to go through and actually become part of state law. But they basically said you cannot restrict the cities. The state said to the cities, you cannot restrict a homeowner's rights to have short-term lodging in their home, as long as obviously the house itself qualifies. It has to be a residential, and of course, it didn't override the HOAs. And so the point that we're trying to make here is that in Idaho, at least, short-term rentals are actually still considered to be a very favorable option. And so I have these two properties in the city of Caldwell, and I haven't really talked a whole lot about this, but I've been throwing it out there just to see a little bit of what the feedback is. But I've gotten, by the way, the reason I haven't talked about it is because I'm not ready for these to be set up yet. So we've been working on it. We did a full renovation. We are right on the precipice of being done and having these things ready to go. And so now I'm looking at, okay, what are my options? Well, one of the options we considered was, hey, what if we were to take, a handful of people that had $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, and we were to put, all that money together, and people would want to own one of these properties with me, or both of them. And so we talked about that. I've had a little bit of interest in that, and we're looking into that. So it's kind of a fun option, right? You don't want to go out and do all the work yourself to get this deal under contract, to get the renovation done, to come up with the financing, to get the whole entire project done. But what if you wanted to have like a little piece of the pie? So that's basically what we're looking at, the possibility of doing. These are two properties. One of them is 5-bedroom plus an office plus a bonus room. The other one is 3-bedroom with a bonus area that can be split up into 2 more bedrooms. And so we're looking at, what the possibilities. And by the way, both of these are located like within about 2 minutes of each other. And both of these properties are located right next to what's getting ready to be a huge development with stores and retail and shopping and restaurants and all kinds of stuff. So really, really cool. Guys, I was surprised. I was in Caldwell last Friday, downtown Caldwell, Idaho. If you're out in the Treasure Valley, I would love to know, like, what do you think about Caldwell? Because Caldwell seems to be like poised to explode with growth. Like Caldwell is honestly, like, I was surprised. I was downtown Caldwell. We had to meet some people, and my goodness, like both of these properties that I have are close enough to this downtown Caldwell area, and there's this, like, the whole gentrification is happening. The city is putting a lot of money into infrastructure. They have this big plaza. They have a big kind of a music stage area gathering. It's really, really cool what's happening. There's little restaurants, these little boutique shops, coffee. It's really, really cool. A lot of old buildings mixed with new. I'm excited about what's happening in Caldwell, and I'm excited about these 2 properties. So, all right, Peggy says, I have 2 short-term rentals in Panama doing very well, the tourist area. Yep. Andy says, like a timeshare with equity and profit. Exactly. Just kind of looking at, hey, if you had some money and we were able to pull that money together, because obviously I've got all my own money invested into this. I've got to be able to get that money back out and go find more deals. So I thought, well, what if we just owned it with some other people? So, okay, Monica has, big question here. What are anyone's thoughts on possible adding a septic on a half acre, technically in the back half, to add ADU or guest house? Or adding ADU on top of my 3rd car garage. I currently have 1,000 4-bedroom, can't get or wait. Boy, Monica, there's a lot of stuff packed into that. The answer to that question is, I've told you this before, I think, Monica, is you really have to figure out what you want to do and then start reverse engineering from there. So, you said wait till public sewer comes available, which I think is more costly. I'm not sure what you mean by that. More costly in the sense of the waiting or in having to do it. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure what you meant by that. I'd love to see if somebody has an answer to that question. You guys can look in the comments, see Monica's question. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in ADUs, but I would say be very, very careful with your numbers, because what most people, when they're building an ADU, whether it's adding onto a garage, you can't just go throw onto a garage, unfortunately. You talk about putting an ADU on top of your garage. Well, more than likely that's going to require extensive re-engineering and probably pretty much rebuild the entire garage, because your garage more than likely wasn't built for a 2nd story, right? So it doesn't have the structural capacity on the main floor to handle the load of an upper floor. So what most people find out is that you actually end up having issues with engineering, trying to re-engineer something that's already existing. If you're going to add an upper floor, you can add onto it, like maybe an addition onto the back of it. But as far as the septic requirements and things like that, Monica, that's going to be really hard to answer without knowing the exact specifications or requirements of your jurisdiction. So one thing I would tell you is probably you should get a hold of, Derek Sherrill or Derek Sherrill. I can't remember how his last name is pronounced, but he's got the really, really great, he's known as That ADU Guy. So if you guys look up That ADU Guy, in fact, I'll just put it in here. That ADU Guy, if you look up at That ADU Guy, he has a lot of really great resources available on the online. So you guys tell him I sent you and go check out his resources. So Monica says, switching to public sewer versus adding septic tank, property taxes will increase either way by adding an ADU. Or yeah, I mean that's just a given. And so when I talk about running your numbers, the question that comes up is, if you're going to actually do an ADU, how much money is it going to cost? This is just a number that I'm very familiar with because of being in the business. But you're going to spend anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 to basically to get a full legalized, permitted, reasonable, like max out your square footage ADU in the state of Oregon in the Portland area. So about $200,000 is kind of what you want to count on. So then the question is, $200,000, how much more money do you get each month by renting that out? How long does it take to recover that $200,000 that you spent? In other words, what point do you break even? And then the question comes up is, was it worth putting that $200,000 into that particular product, or could you have taken that $200,000 and put it into something else that would have made a lot more money a lot quicker? So that's I would say, Peggy says tiny house. Yeah, ADU, tiny house, kind of one and the same thing, unless it's one on wheels. Then it's a different requirement because it's not permanently fixed, permanently attached. You can usually get a pretty decent one of those, I would say, for about 100,000, maybe 80 to 100. Again, the question is like, okay, how much money are you going to put into something like that? And then how much is it worth? How much value does it add if it's not permanently attached? Then where are you connecting to sewer and water? There's all that kind of stuff. So I would just really look into that. I love the idea. This is what I love. I love the idea of new construction homes being built with an ADU pretty much, from day one. That's what I love. I love if you're going to build something from the ground up, build an ADU for two reasons. Number one, it's going to help you if you're trying to sell the property because you already have that there, right? And it's perceived as additional value. It appraises well. Number two, you're already getting financing to build your house. In many cases, it's not that hard to wrap in extra financing for it as long as it's all one package. But if you try to go get financing for an ADU afterwards, there's very few banks that will loan money just on an ADU. That's the issue that a lot of people run into. So you're either taking your own cash and putting it in, or you're borrowing at a high rate. And I just would say, really look into the numbers. It sounds fun. It looks fun. It is fun. In fact, I have a friend who just finished up an ADU down in Arizona. He just sent me pictures. But it is definitely something you want to make sure you go into it with your eyes wide open, because at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not in this business to just spend money and not ever make anything. We want to try to actually make a return on our investment. And that return on investment is going to determine whether or not it's a good deal. Yeah, you could do a HELOC if you've got enough equity and you can pull that cash out. Then more power to you, right? See here, I got my son texting me. He's done here. I got lecture from the vanity. Okay, I'm just going to let him know. Does it work? He's working on shower valve, and so I just want to get that. Okay, so Monica says, what about those little prefab foldable little houses? Make it fixed. Just a question. Yes, 200,000 lot permit size, etc. Okay, yeah. So those little prefab foldable little houses that we see on social media, most jurisdictions do not allow those because they're not built to the code of the local jurisdiction. Remember, every jurisdiction has its own set of building code regulations, requirements for hold downs, all that kind of stuff, building material types. And so you see this stuff, from China. It's like, hey, you can get this thing shipped and it comes and it unfolds and bada boom, bada bing. It's great. The only place that I would even, venture to do something like that is, one, if I knew I had a jurisdiction that was absolutely favorable and trying to get that. Number two, if I had properties out in the middle of nowhere and it didn't matter, no one was going to be looking, and I just could set up on some blocks and then build a little deck around it, that would be a different story. But you still have to provide water, power, and obviously sewer for those. And then the other thing about those is you're getting, I don't know if any of you have ever traveled abroad, but toilet sizes in other countries, particularly in Asian countries, are not always the same size as the ones that we're used to. So it's funny to say something like that, but you never know what you're going to get with those kits. I would just be very careful about that. And then Andy says those foldable homes won't last in Northwest weather exactly, regardless of regulations. I agree. You can't have things that are folding and unhinging. Every one of those hinge points presents a potential leak issue with all the heavy rain that we get in the Northwest. I don't know that that's really a great option. So, yeah, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, by the way, Monica. I just know that some of these little kind of like, these little ideas, they seem really good. And, you have a 30-second clip on Instagram and it looks like it's all done, and ready to move into. And most of the time, those things take, a year or two to get completely done from beginning to end. And then the big question is, after you put all the money into it, what are you going to get out of it? Okay. I look at it like this. If I'm going to buy a prize dairy cow, this is a bad analogy for most of you because most of you have never maybe milked a cow or been around a cow. By the way, did you guys know that milk does not come from cartons? It comes from cows. Just in case, you weren't sure. But if you're going to buy a prize dairy cow, like a prize Jersey dairy cow, you have the right to ask, how many gallons of milk per day am I going to get from this cow, right? And so you want to look at an investment like that, like get an idea of how much is it really realistically going to cost to do this thing, and then what can I expect to make every month. And I just know that most of the flashy Instagrammable type of, ideas that you see on social media, they don't actually produce great income when you really actually look at the numbers. So Monica, thank you. She said, I love your direct opinions. Truly appreciate it. Truly. Yeah, Ted's like, get laugh out loud, you got to make sure you look at it like you're looking at a cow, right? I have a couple more minutes. I want to address a couple of things that that people have asked me about recently, but I don't want to jump into that if there's another question. So I'm going to check the comments here. Looking at the comments. Yeah, what about those foldable houses? Yep. Looking at this. All right. Let's see here. Did we miss anything on Instagram? We got a couple people watching there. Okay, guys, I want to address this real quickly. Somebody asked me recently about the lead source that I mentioned, and they said, okay, well, where are these getting these leads? And I'm just going to be honest. My best leads come from working with seniors. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that. My best leads come from working with senior sellers, and primarily with their families. But I also want to just say this, that it's a whole different type of lead sourcing. Okay, so real quickly in the comments, somebody drop a couple of comments on what are the traditional types of lead generation. Okay, what kind of lead generation? We talked about what a good motivated seller lead is, right? That good motivated seller lead is going to have those 4 pillars, right? Those 4 major elements. They got a timeline, they got a definite timeline, they got a price in mind, they're highly motivated because of life situation, and the property itself is maybe not in great condition. That's the like the quintessential perfect motivated seller lead, right? When you get all 4 of those. Now the question is, how do you get those leads? And I've personally, just in my own mind, in my own practice, in my own business, I have found there's really 2 different ways of generating highly motivated seller leads. Now there's all kinds of different methods, but there's these 2 different kind of umbrellas. Okay, I'm seeing some comments coming in here. Let's see. Peggy says, divorce, death, loss of job. Yes, those things happen. But I'm trying how do we actually get to those leads? Okay. Monica, same thing, says foreclosures, taxes are behind. Yes, but how do we get those people? How do we have those conversations with the people who have gone through divorce, or they've had a loved one pass away, or they just lost their job, or they're in foreclosure, or they're behind on their taxes? How do we create opportunities to talk to those people? Okay. Andy actually says here that the walkthrough had seniors and disabled people still there. Not sure if wholesaler cares if seller has a place to go to. Yeah, well, that's again, PDX. I'm just going to leave it alone. Okay. So Ted actually has a really great answer. He says mailers, driving for dollars, wholesalers. Okay, those are 3 different methods of producing the opportunities to be able to talk to those potential sellers, right? So someone in pre-foreclosure, they need someone to help them, right? So Monica says title company has a list. Yes, there's different lists that you can get. You can get a list from your title company if you have a good title officer you're working with. Yeah, Peggy has that same thing. By the way, guys, Rochelle Navarro over at Tycor Title, she's one of the ladies that I work with. Man, she can get you guys this list. Like, they can get you guys all kinds of lists, give you tools. If you're here in the Treasure Valley area, we just had a really great meetup last month over at First American Title. Okay, so there's people that can give you these lists, right? And what I found is, when I said, though, there's 2 primary sources, what I mean by that is this. Okay, write this down if you're taking notes. You are either going to spend your time getting access to those lists, making the skip trace to call and find an email. Skip tracing is relatively inexpensive, but still you're going to have to spend, a couple $50-$70 on a big list to get emails and phone numbers. You're going to have to spend time driving for dollars. Was mentioned by Ted. Great. Who hasn't done driving for dollars, right? Guys, if there's a way to generate a lead, this guy right here, I have done it, and I have probably done it I don't want to say better than most, but I've done it with more vigor, with more enthusiasm. I have done it. If you guys, in the Portland area, Cornelius Pass Road, right, winding down to Highway 30 from 26 down to Highway 30. For many, many years, the John Buys Houses signs were on those telephone poles and some of those S turns, because I realized I was driving that road every day for a long time. I realized, man, I have to slow down to a grinding halt. I'm looking right at these 3 telephone poles. So I was up there in the middle of the night with an extension ladder on a pouring down rain evening about midnight 30. With my board, my signs and my nails and my hammer, and just got soaking wet. Put my signs up there high enough to where someone couldn't just come and grab them and pull them down. I've done the bandit signs. I've done mailers. I've done postcards. I've done letters on the doors. I've done sticky notes on the doors. I've worked with other wholesalers who had leads. I have, Peggy says, I have your signs in my apartment. Yes, you do, Peggy. And I have a lot of them. By the way, Peggy, you can put those up anywhere you want to, but I would highly recommend be very careful getting up on a ladder, and probably don't do it on Cornelius Pass Road. Okay. If you're going to do it, don't do it in the middle of a rainstorm. But the point is, I'm trying to make here is, you're either going to spend your time putting up signs, knocking on doors on weekends, right? Spending your evenings and afternoons driving for dollars, lunch breaks, driving around neighborhoods, looking for those properties. And again, even if you see a property that has a distressed look on it, you're going to have to go out and skip trace them and talk to the seller, and it's going to take time. Now, a lot of people, what they do after they do that for a while is like, man, this is very labor intensive. I think instead of spending my time to find these leads, what I'll do is I'll go over here and I'll spend my money. You're going to spend time, or you're going to spend money in the traditional sense of generating good, motivated seller leads. Remember, we're talking about highly motivated seller leads, not just any old lead, not just, hey, I think I saw somebody in my neighborhood that put their house up for sale. Aren't you a real estate person? Okay, we understand there's motivated seller leads, or who we want to talk to. Okay, and so in my experience, after spending a bunch of time doing all these different sorts, and every one of them produced results, but they weren't consistent. Then I started spending money. I started running Google ads, pay-per-click. I started spending Meta, Facebook ads, right? Setting up ad campaigns, get your campaign set up, then get your audience set up, then get your messaging set up. And really, you have to tweak it. And you have to make sure, especially with real estate stuff, there's all these rules with Meta and Facebook and housing and discriminatory, and you have to make sure you have all this stuff right. And I've gotten my Facebook account flagged before. I've gotten completely blocked out before, because there's somebody flagged something on one of my ads and they didn't like it. So boom, the whole entire campaign, all the money, all the time, just completely shut down because of somebody just being, I don't like these investors coming in. They just click the thing, and next thing I know, I'm out of business. I've done it all. Okay. I have spent money on cold callers. I had a team of 5 virtual assistants in the Philippines working for me. Not only do you spend money on the cold callers, but those cold callers have to have dialers. They have to have a seat, right? So you have to have a dialing system. You have to have different seats for your cold callers. In those seats, they really rotate through the numbers without getting those phone numbers flagged as spam. You need to actually have those phone numbers pre-qualified. Then you should probably have like at least 5 or 6 different numbers per cold caller. Oh my goodness, it was a lot. I've done it all. I've had texting campaigns. I've done where you just buy the leads a la carte, so to speak. I've done it all. Okay. So what I found over the and Peggy's good, super good point. Peggy, you have to train them. I don't care how well trained they say they are. You have to train them. At the very least, you have to train them in what you are specifically looking for. And of course, if you're going to buy you're going to get contracted with one that is highly qualified and already has experience, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to pay a premium. You're not going to be paying $4 an hour. You're going to be paying, somewhere closer to 10 to 12. Now you're kind of getting into how much can my budget afford? What I'm trying to tell you guys is this: I have generated leads in just about every way that I possibly know how to, and I have found that there's the 2 categories, right? There's the time hustle, and then there's the money hustle. Both of them, you're going to have to spend something. You're going to have to spend something. And so what I actually kind of stumbled into accidentally when I talk about working with seniors, And again, Andy just mentioned he's literally out doing a walkthrough as we were talking on, started off the call today. Andy's doing a walkthrough with some sellers who are seniors. They have a disabled person there, and they've got to sell, right? So the senior sellers are in my opinion, the best motivated sellers to work with. Okay. Not only are they the best because the qualifications are there, right? They're highly motivated. They typically motivated, meaning this, like they have a situation in life where someone's fallen or whatever, and they have to sell. Not because they want to sell, they have to sell. So when I say motivation, I don't mean like they're like super excited about it. What I mean is they have a reason to sell, right? So my senior sellers, in my experience, have been they have high motivation, they have high equity, they have properties that are not market ready. And they also have, realistic expectations. They're not usually expecting $1 million for a house that's 500,000. Okay. So when we talk about motivated sellers, in my opinion, they're the best. Working with seniors is the best pool demographic, so to speak, of sellers that you can work with in the country today. And I don't think that's going to be changing anytime for the next 15 to 20 years. Why? Because we have this thing called the baby boomers, and the baby boomer generation are in that time of life where they are selling for one reason or another. And this is they don't call it the baby boom for nothing, right? There was this huge, massive growth explosion of people having babies, World War II veterans coming home, starting their families off. There was this big explosion of babies being born, and that generation is now moving into a time of life where they are selling. It's interesting that generation is also the largest demographic of homeowners in America are in that generation. Okay, so you have a lot of different forces that are kind of converging here to make seniors a great resource to actually work with when it comes time to sell. Now, the question that comes up is how to have those conversations. And I'll tell you right now, more than likely, they're not going to respond to Google ads. They're not going to respond to a mailer. They're not going to be online looking for, buy my house quickly. They're typically not going to respond to cold calling or text blasting. Okay. And then on top of the things that they don't do, there's this other element that comes to working with seniors at this time of life. And that's something that Ted Sedler knows on here very well, because Ted himself is actually in the industry working with seniors. There's kind of this gatekeeper mentality of people in the senior professional space that we don't want to allow. We don't ever want to be a part of one of our senior clients actually getting ripped off somehow. Okay. And so there's a lot of extra protective layers that are kind of built in to insulate the most senior homeowners from ever seeing any kind of marketing or branding that you have. Does that make sense? Say yes. Throw me a yes, or give me a one, or give me a one in the chat if that makes sense to you. Okay, do you guys understand what I'm saying so far? Like, give me a one in the chat if you understand that these people tend to be insulated. They're being protected. Why? Because of their age, because of their situation in life, because of right. They're not out there just like, oh yeah, I saw a telephone pole on my way home from work last week, and it looked like it was on Cornelius Pass Road. Somebody climbed up there and put a sign that says John buys houses. Maybe you should call him. That's not what's happening, right? You guys get this. I'm seeing the ones come in. Okay. And so what I have discovered, and this was almost by accident, I say almost because I was really already in this space, but I actually was working with a senior couple from the church that I attended, and they needed to sell their house. They needed to get moved quickly. And so in a series of different conversations and walkthroughs on their property, it just is like, why don't you guys just see why don't you get moved in, find out what it's going to cost, and there's costs involved. And so I worked out a way for them to get moved in because I was just trying to help some friends. Okay. And so by doing that, it kind of opened up this whole world of opportunity to me that I didn't really know existed before. And what I have found is that these are the best leads in the market, but they are very, very, I don't want to say hard to get to, because once you see it, once you see the how to work within this area, it's actually very, very simple. It's actually, it doesn't require time hustle, and it doesn't require very much money at all. In fact, you could do this without spending any money on marketing, although I would highly recommend getting some business cards and having some stuff to say, which is funny because we don't really do business cards in the world of working with pre-foreclosures and all that stuff. But in this particular space, it's just something that works really well for a lot of different reasons. The point I'm saying all this is this. I've been doing this for 5 years. It's worked great in the Portland market. I came here to move to Idaho, about a little over a year and a half ago. You guys know this. As soon as I got here, I started establishing this niche here locally. It's been great. I took a handful of people last year, just kind of as a test run. A handful of people from Idaho and from Portland, and kind of real estate invested minded people, and started showing them some of the ways to do this. And it's been very, very interesting to watch these folks become kind of the experts, the go-to people in their space, in their area. So I have been working on putting together kind of a mini course on this whole entire topic, because I've had so many people that have asked me. I want to be really clear, and actually Andy nailed it right here. He says there's predatory laws and mindset. That is one of the biggest things that you have to be aware of when you're working with seniors, is that there are certain rules that you must follow. Whether there's wholesale laws in your state or not, there's certain rules when it comes to seniors that you have to follow these rules to avoid getting into trouble. And obviously you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. So I personally have been very tight-lipped about this. I have not gone on, you guys, I've been doing Tuesday talks for years now. We've done the meetups. This is not something I come in and speak about a lot publicly, simply because of the fact that it is very, very important that only the right kind of people be doing this. But having said that, there's so much need for people helping seniors. There's such a massive opportunity. I've just recently started kind of talking about this. I put together a little mini course. It's very simple. It kind of lays out what the opportunity is, where this opportunity is going, what I believe is going to happen, what I believe, how you have to kind of shift to become the person that becomes trusted in this space. Really, really interesting. If you guys are interested in that, I have my editors have told me that the mini course will be ready this month. Okay. So this mini course is something that I am going to charge money for down the road. Okay. I'm just being really clear with that. I'm up front. I'm telling you guys right now, at some point, you're going to see me charging money for this. However, on this side of it, right? Because before I go to put it out to market and start charging money for it, I would love to get some interest and some feedback from you guys on what do you guys think? Okay. Because the Tuesday Talks crowd, my meetup crowd, these are people that I typically know. Like, I know most of you guys. Okay. If you're on here today watching, I know you. So if you are interested in getting a sneak peek at this, if you're interested in seeing what this course kind of looks like, I would love for you to comment on down here below. Type the word in leads. Okay. LEADS, all caps, type it out so I know exactly what you're talking about. Type in leads, and I will get a copy of this to you. Now, it's not quite ready yet. Okay. I'm waiting on my editors to come in, but as soon as I'm done, I will actually get a copy to you guys, because I want you to see what this is. And I want you to give me honest, don't be critical, but give me a critique, right? Tell me what you think. I want to have you guys take a look at this and tell me, John, that was interesting, or John, whatever. Okay. Because I understand that if I'm going to go take a product to market and actually start charging money for this down the road, I want it to be fine-tuned and tested before I take it to market. So if you guys are interested in that, type in the word leads, and I will get that over to you guys as soon as it is ready. Now, if I don't do it today or tomorrow, then don't worry, you didn't miss it. But I'm going to be looking through the comments to be able to say, okay, I know now that I actually have it in hand, I'm going to take it and put it out there and see what you guys think. So I'll be looking for that. Appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you for bearing through my voice. You can still, I still don't have it all the way back yet, but if you guys are ready to meet in person, I want you guys to come out to the Treasure Valley Real Estate Investors Group meetup this coming Thursday. That's this Thursday night. Today's Tuesday. We got Wednesday and then Thursday night. And if you want information on that, you're going to have to go and actually fill out the RSVP. And that is very, very simply, it's tvreigroup.com/meetup. Okay, and that's for the RSVP for this coming Thursday night. I actually think we're completely filled up. Like every seat in the room is already spoken for, but we have a little more room for like standing room only in this space. So we're going to bring in some extra chairs. We've got a little bit of overflow. So make sure you RSVP for that. I'd love to meet you guys in person if you're in the Treasure Valley area. And of course, if you're in the Portland market, you guys, most of you already know this, but I need you to understand, I've got to have you guys start RSVPing because this is the format that we're using. So again, pdxreigroup.com/meetup. That's going to tell me how many people we actually need to buy food for. And that's going to tell you where exactly we're meeting. So if you want information on that, pdxreigroup.com/meetup. And then, of course, in the Treasure Valley area, tvreigroup.com/meetup. Okay, that's it. That's what I've got for today. Got to get back to work. Peggy says, see you at Squad Up. Peggy, I will not be there. I regrettably, this is the first time since Squad Up was started that I won't be able to make it. I'm going to be down in the LA area. I've got to meet with some really good dear friends, personal family friends. My wife and I are going down to meet them, spend a couple of days with them. They don't get over into US very often. So they're in country and we're going to go down and hang out with them for a little bit. So Ted, I'll see you there in Oregon. Tanya, I hope that we'll see you here in Idaho. I believe you're in the Idaho market, if I remember correctly. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Or no, Tanya's going to be in, where are you going to be, Tanya? You're going to be at Squad Up in Denver. Perfect. You guys will have to get together and be buddies, hang out together. Tanya, if you haven't met Peggy yet, I can tell you right now, Peggy knows everybody. Everybody knows Peggy. She's a good one to partner up with and hang out with. She'll introduce you to lots of people. So, guys, I appreciate you being here. Make sure you comment leads if you are looking to come out. I'm looking to get those whenever I come out with that. It's going to be a little bit later this month, but I will be looking through the comments. So make sure you say leads if you want to get a sneak peek at that little mini course that I'm putting together. And God bless you guys. I'll see you. Hopefully see you at the TV REI group meetup this Thursday if you're in the Valley, and then later on this month in Portland. Okay, guys, take care. God bless.